There we are. Hello, everyone. Let's arrange that a little bit. So now I'm feeling well, looking in the right direction.
Me too.
So welcome, Stefan. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
For all the people who don't know you yet, who are you? So you are an awesome CTO because you call yourself like that. But why
Amazing.
is that? Oh, sorry, amazing CTO. Talk a little bit about yourself, please.
Well, I'm a coder by heart. Have been coding for 40 years. Currently write a lot of Go code, but on the side, I have been an engineering manager for 25 years. Been a CTO in several companies. Founded my own startups, and for some years now, I'm a CTO coach, helping others with their CTO problems.
There are always plenty of CTO problems, isn't it? And one of them is the actual motivation of developers, right? So actually motivation is most of the times two-sided. So in fact, it even does have correct names, which is the negative and the positive motivation. So the positive motivation is, self-discipline, joy. This is the model we're talking about today, right? And the other is the whip model. It is the external force. Or sometimes I like to call it the deadline-driven, especially because in software development space, that is very often the typical deadline. The line when everyone is dying when you don't meet it. Actually, no one is dying, but there's still this deadline. And that is the negative motivation. Both motivate people to move on, but only one sustains over time. And that's the positive one. And that is when you see often that companies actually struggle. They probably have too much of negative motivation. So that is a claim I do right now. And you are here today because I think you are even way more experienced than I am. So you are ex-eBay, isn't it? And another company in Germany, Immobilien Scout 24, it was, right? Exactly. Yes. So you have quite a interesting history, and I'm curious to hear from you about those kind of things. And I would like to start with a question right before a quick announcement. For everyone who's in the audience today, feel free to ask questions or, give us some statements or feedback. What do you think about those things? We will talk over them and give you feedback and basically include you into the conversation. So let's start with Stefan, what would you say? What factors drive and kill developer motivation?
First of all, I'm not sure I'm more experienced than you might be. At least I have the whiter hair, so that might be an indication, but I don't know. What kills developer motivation? When I was a CTO or an engineering manager, I thought a lot about motivation. I read about a lot of things about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation and all of that. But the real eye-opener to me was a Harvard Business Review article some years ago, many years ago, I think, which said people come motivated to your company, stop demotivating them. And that was like kind of, yes. That was kind of it's simple, but that was back then mind-blowing to me. And I think the one of the biggest things about demotivating developers, I feel, is randomness. Developers don't like randomness. There was this, it's no longer hip, but there was this comic, the Dilbert comic, which made fun of office structures and software development. And I think there was some, in this comic, this was called Random Acts of Management. And I think random acts of management and randomness in general is the biggest demotivator for developers. In the case of what you mentioned, in the case of deadlines, random features, random switches in strategy, just randomness. I think this is what developers do not like.
It is not deterministic, isn't it?
Yes, it isn't.
And we like to have things deterministic, right?
Yeah.
So if we don't understand things or don't understand why things happen, probably it's not only the software developers who don't like that, but humans in general. We don't like to go to work and suddenly something happens there, which is actually harmful or stressful for us. and we actually haven't accepted that or expected that. And if we have that too often, we basically probably develop some form of anxiety to actually go to a workplace.
Yeah.
And I think long-term consequences might be the typical silent quitter, the person who is already quitting, either doing nothing of, let's say is not taking ownership anymore, those kind of things, or is actually already applying for another job somewhere else and you don't know about that. Those kind of things are actually quite bad to have. So we have already first comment. Maria Sulfika is writing, developers' motivation is killed by not is it small? Wait a second, I need to go a little bit. It's killed by not valuing them and constantly putting them into blame culture and not appreciating their growth and improvements. What do you say about that?
I would agree. I would point about appreciation. I feel like people are not appreciated enough. Where I come from, this is the very south of Germany. There is a saying: if I don't scorn you, I'm appreciating you. So don't wait for any appreciation. That's not the culture. But in a company, this is sometimes I also see in companies. When I ask my clients, have you appreciated people, what they did, what you liked? No. Did you do that today? No. So I feel in general there's not enough appreciation going on, which is not only good for motivation, but also for showing the way. If you tell people, I like that, I like, honestly, not anything fake, but honestly, you like something, you say, I like that, I like your growth, I like how you progressed, I like this feature, how you did it, I like the code, then people will do more of that. So it's not only motivation, but it's also getting people in the right direction. So I would agree to that, especially focusing also on appreciation.
I'm quickly sharing something. There we are. And I want to quickly note, because it's very interesting what you say. So I'm prepared a very simple board right now. Motivation. Okay. And you had, let's have some stickers here. The green one. Oh, this is so small. Okay. That's so random. Okay. So you said actually appreciation.
Yes.
Appreciation is important. So let's have that here. On that side and on that side we had randomness.
Yeah.
Randomness. So like that. And then we have a little bit like having that here on the go and take a look how that actually turns out to work. Yes, I would agree to what you just said. And I think appreciation is something many companies out there, especially in the leadership area, since this, or let's say this leadership area or space is in the verticals so far away from the actual operational area that oftentimes the team leads, who are the actual leaders of the operational personnel, the individuals, they actually cannot do anything because they receive their orders as well. So the actual appreciation for doing things good is not really there, because good means decent or you have met the quality or something like that. So we basically appreciate you with a salary, right?
Yeah.
So you don't really need to say, there is no need to say thank you. But on the other hand, as you said, it's like pushing you even into, even down, you can say, when something goes wrong. And that is, I think, one of the worst things that can happen.
Yeah. I had once a boss, I had once a CEO as a boss, and he said, Stefan, I would not like to have your job. If everything goes well, no one appreciates it, no one notices. And if it goes wrong, everyone is angry. So if there is an incident, a critical bug, if there is a feature overtime or whatever not working means, then people are angry with you, but there is not enough appreciation if everything is people don't notice in a company if everything is fine, if features are delivered and the website is stable and no hacks and no incidents. And yeah, so that's right at the top.
So Alina was then following up on Maria. I want to agree that surprises is not very good for motivation. Yeah, that's actually the determinism.
No, that's I would even more strongly burn it. I think people don't like. I don't like surprises, but perhaps I'm a very, very engineering type of guy. But in general, I think people don't like surprises too much. So I encourage my clients not to surprise people, but to in one-on-ones or something. It should be as soft, as easy as possible for new information or for changing and for taking their input, and then, but not jump out of the, like this is what happens, and it also kills motivation. I think is if you're a manager and then you think about a problem for a month. You have a problem, you think about a problem for a month, you don't ask anyone, and you don't talk to your management team, to your direct reports. You just think, this is my problem. It might be a new org setup, it might be whatever it is that you're thinking, and then you come to a conclusion, and then you jump the solution on people, and they come to office in the morning on Monday morning into an all hands, and you tell them, I thought for a month about a new org structure, this is it. People. I don't think people want to be surprised, and that these kind of surprises, I think,
and excluded. Surprised and excluded. So if you're excluded, you're surprised.
And excluded. Yes.
So if you would be included, you wouldn't be surprised in that moment.
Yes.
I think that goes hand in hand. So that is so we have just that was a good point. So actually, it's randomness and surprises. Yes. And maybe I would like to add rigidness. Is that actually a word as well? Rigidness. Well, let's rigid. Rigid.
I wanted to go a little bit deeper, perhaps, Adrian, before moving on. I have one point that is perhaps something that I found, or that drives my beliefs, and why software engineering is also different than other departments in a company. And one of the points, software engineering, product development is different because we're living with the results of our work for the next 5 years. So if marketing burns money in a campaign, that's bad, but the campaign is done. And if you haven't burnt the brand, it's just a burnt money, and then you need more money, a new campaign, but an old campaign is not that bad for you. Except perhaps I met a person who at eBay who invented 3-2-1 Mainz, which is a focus on 3-2-1 mine, which is a focus on auction. When the company wanted to move away from auctions later, they couldn't get rid of these very strong auctioning branding. So sometimes what marketing does is has an impact for the future, but usually it hasn't. Same for sales or something. But in engineering, what we do now impacts us for the next 5 years. And if you're 3 years in the company, it probably impacts all your company life in this company. Architecture, choosing this database over that database. And in this kind of environment, I feel like surprises and randomness is bad. There's other reasons why it's bad for an engineer, but also in this environment where you have to live with your, you can't jump around. It's not like in some other professions.
It is probably like that you feel that you lost or lose control over time, because no matter what you decide, you don't feel that you are in charge in that moment. When, let's say, external factors actually influences what you do that much, right? And maybe,
but you're still responsible for making it work, and making it run. So this gap between, you're responsible for making it run, so the website is stable, no incidents, features delivered, can be delivered in a reasonable amount of time because the code is maintainable. So you're responsible for that, but the decisions are contradictory to what you're responsible for. And this gap between what you're forced to do and what you're responsible to maintain, if this is going too big, that also kills motivation, because you're no longer don't feel in control for the things you're responsible for. And that's something I see quite often in engineering.
Losing control. External factors. Okay, just I'll show the board later on again. Okay, so that's actually motivation killers, and we had some factors for that as well. We have one comment, and then we're going to the actual model. Maria says, I also observed some surprises are shown at the time of pay raise. The whole year you are told you are good, and then on the day they tell you are nothing. Yeah, that's a classic.
The motivation then probably falls off a cliff.
Yeah.
If you read my newsletter, I have a newsletter, CTO newsletter. Just in the recent one on Sunday, there was one article I talked about, which is annual feedback. I don't like annual feedback. I think you should give continuous feedback. People need to know. Don't be surprised at annual feedback. They need to know where they're standing all the time, and not once a year. So minor detour.
And I would say very transparent. So that is again something which is deterministic. So if you got, let's say you have 11 meetings in a first month, and then the last meeting is basically the final year's meeting in the December, right? And suddenly everything changes. And when it comes to the hard facts, you are suddenly not that good anymore. They just wanted to keep you like, just keep working. We tell you what you want to hear. And that is extremely frustrating, because that is actually a heavy lack of trust in that moment.
Yes.
But, and that lack of trust.
Yeah.
Lack of trust. That is here. There we are right now. So lack of trust is a big problem. So what would be the opposite of lack of trust in that moment? It would be like being true and honest. Being true and honest. I think honesty is very important in that moment, that you really say, hey, there is something you need to work on. Please do that. Because if you do that, we can work from that, and not saying, hey, everything is great. But when it actually comes to a pay raise or something like that, you stand there and okay, you feel. I think that is a little bit like the. How can I put it? It's a little bit like you have the feeling that you fall, right? So there is total lack of control for yourself. You don't know what are the circumstances now, in which environment actually am I in, because I thought it is like that, but it's actually different. And I think the next year is definitely a different one. And in Germany we have a word, it's called entgeistert. You are actually, it's another form of totally demotivated. So you don't believe in the cause anymore of the company, right?
Yeah.
So last comment
I have
now.
a thing about demotivation. I have one demotivated that I experienced myself because I also code a little bit more now, and I think it's all the friction around tooling. I like one friction for me in the past when I was coding was always getting the database into a state that's workable with. And for what I'm doing now, it's a very minor thing, but I created a tool that creates 10 different users in 10 different states with 10 different products, or onboarded, not onboarded, and creates a list of links on startup. And I just click on the link and I'm logged in as that user. And I can just work for this. So I need to work on, add a feature for this user, I change something, can click, I'm that user, I can change something, I see the different views, I see a product or a user with no product, user with 2 products, something like that. And that makes that reduces friction a lot, and that makes it much easier. So I think most companies I've seen are not spending enough on internal tooling and developer tooling, and that's all of these DX, developer experience things. I'm not so sure a lot of these developer experience things are motivators, but the lack of them are great demotivators, I think.
When it's not working. So complexity is against motivation, because complexity keeps you from making progress, and progress is the foundation of happiness. So if you can't make progress because things are too
Yes.
complex and your tools are not adequate for that, or too complex to use, because oftentimes it's the siloed senior person who's the only person who can use that, everyone else not. And if this
Yeah.
person is on vacation, everyone else feels a strong anxiety there, those kind of things. I agree. So I think DX, or developer experience, shouldn't be the highest priority in the company, but it must be a priority.
Yeah.
Just as you said, to not lack it. That's the point, right?
Yeah.
Because it should be pleasant to work, right? So
Yeah.
you don't want to work at the place which is complex. You don't find your tools. It is messed up. You feel like every time you do something because of that, it gets worse and it fires back at you. Those kind of things aren't good. And
No.
onboarding processes, for example, it is very demotivating when you feel after 3 or 4 weeks not yet ready to work in an environment. That's a clear sign that you need to fix that environment right out there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So quickly just reading that one, since it's a promise. Asri said, being in control of what you're responsible for is huge. I agree, totally agree. Responsibility is very important, and responsibility is actually something we can only take if we are willing or able to take ownership. And that is, of course, probably only a thing which is possible in a positive environment. But since we want to talk about, we're going to the comments after that one now, we want to talk about something you call DMO, which is basically the developer motivation model. And please introduce us to what that actually is. How does it work?
So how did I come to this? I read, as I said in the beginning, I read a lot about motivation. I talked to my clients, which are CTOs. They are doing all the stuff. They are doing space. They are doing metrics, Dora. They have the shiniest Macs possible every year. So they try to do everything by the book to keep developers motivated, because I think motivated developers are productive. I'm not such a fan of the word productive and productivity in engineering, because I feel we don't know what it is. Currently, I don't know. We should focus on it. So, but in the end, that's what my clients are looking into, and they are mystified that although they are doing all that stuff, some developers seem motivated and some developers seem unmotivated. And that's a mystery, So you do all the stuff, you dance all the dances, you do all the ritual, everything. You spend money, but then still it's like before. I think the reason for this is that first, there is no motivation. The word motivation is just an easy shortcut for two things, which is, for me, joy and discipline, self-discipline. So if you have joy, you're in a task, you're doing a task. If you have joy coding, you're coding. You're doing this. And if you don't have joy, you need to have discipline. You need to counterbalance the lack of joy with discipline. So you need to have discipline, self-discipline to do something. So if you enjoy something, you're doing it because you enjoy it. If you don't enjoy something, you do something because you have the self-discipline to do it, even if even if you don't like it. And that's how, and that explains to my clients I talk to more about why developers do some things and like some things and seem motivated and unmotivated. So that's how I see it. And it's kind of, it also means it's kind of not the right thing to try to get in the state of being motivated and then doing something, or trying to get people into the state of motivation so they do something. But look at the two core raw things, which is joy. Is this person enjoying what they're doing? Which means as a CTO, you should look into things that people get more to think they are enjoying. And also telling people, okay, I know you're not enjoying this. And this is something I tell people in an interview. There will be stuff you're not going to enjoy. Like 20% of the work you're not going to enjoy. There is some stupid color change in a difficult to change page. There is some Google Tag Manager integration. There will be some stuff you will not be enjoying. And I try to find out if they still say, yeah, I can deal with that. Or if it says, no, then that's a job not for me. And if
Yeah,
they
but
say
this
it's
is in
not
the
a job for me,
self-discipline, right? So
then
the
they don't
things you
have the
don't like, you
substance-
need to push through.
Yes, but yeah, you need to have the self-discipline to push through the tasks that you don't like.
But you can only fill up the self-discipline with joy, actually. So if you enjoy most of the stuff, and after, let's say, when the week is over, you say, oh, that was actually good. We have done something as a team. It was fun to do it. We learned a lot. We failed a little bit. And on that day, it was pretty stressful, but we learned a lot, and I'm looking forward for next week. I think this is what equals motivation then, right? So when we show it again, because that's actually pretty cool. You have the joy part, right? This is what proud. You have some form of, or let's say, pride in that moment. As a team, as an individual, you like what you do. You took ownership, and you want to take ownership again for the next week. And you knew that there were parts which were actually requiring discipline, and there will be again. And you are already steeling yourself by really saying, that's it. That's my calling. I'm following my profession. I'm going to do that. Now imagine what happens when you don't have that, right? So you don't have the joy, and yeah, you need to take discipline. Everyone expecting discipline from you, but you already can't stand it, right?
Yes.
That is when resistance kicks in. That's basically the opposite of discipline.
If you don't have both, if you have neither, if you do not have joy and you have not self-discipline, you are not motivated. And it's basically, I can't motivate you by a prep talk or prep speech or something. It's not. I can. I think that the CTO or the manager needs to look into create more of the things that the person enjoys, like probably coding, like more time coding, less time meeting, or more time coding, less time fighting or with the system, or like increase the amount of time someone, a developer, spends on the things they enjoy, but also lead the developer into self-awareness that there are things that are not going to enjoy, and they need to have the discipline to just do it. There is no other way around the task you're not enjoying. You just need to do them. And that's difficult for some people, and it's very easy for other people. Like, I know some people who are very self-disciplined, and they can do all the stuff they don't like. I'm not that, I'm quite well, but I'm not excellent at it. So this is how I think you should see it. And to wrap it up to what we said before about the demotivators, I think the demotivators mostly, some of them don't help with the discipline, because I need to be very disciplined to do this task, and then the IDE does not start, or or there's a bug, or I don't know, I compile it and there's a bug in a class I haven't touched. Like that's kind of that makes discipline hard. Like these demotivators make keeping up discipline hard. And they also, on the other hand, if you feel joy, they will reduce the joy. That's how I feel like these demotivator things we talked about fit into this. They make keeping up discipline hard, and they reduce joy.
Yeah, because you waste your discipline already on removing roadblocks which shouldn't be there. Which is why it is often so. I'm talking often about why I think the experienced and seasoned senior developers and team leads should focus on reducing complexity, removing roadblocks, so that especially the people who still fighting with sometimes the basics still, that they don't lose their motivation, because they need to use all the discipline in order to just get the very simple things done, which should be like that should be no question whatsoever how we actually do that. Another bad example are pipelines which aren't working, right? There is a client pressuring something like that, or PO or someone telling you, hey, you need to fix something, and you can't deploy. So you get the pressure and you can't deploy. You don't know why, because someone else produce something which is too complex. You don't know exactly what's going on. You can't fix it, and the person who can isn't there. Those kind of things are extremely frustrating.
Yeah.
And when you have that very often, then you feel that's simply a broken process.
Yeah.
And
And
someone
that
needs to
frustration
fix that.
breaks your discipline and breaks your joy. So
Exactly.
if you have joy in the task, it breaks your joy. If you have discipline in the task doing it, it breaks discipline. So it breaks but for whatever reason you're doing the task, joy or discipline, but this frustration kills either of them.
Let's quickly go to the comments, and then I would have a special question in that area for you. Maria again said, blame culture destroys motivation too. Blame culture in that case. Because of retrospectives and post-incident reviews are done entirely blamelessly. Team level and org level it's done like this. If there is a spot where one person could have caused a problem on their own, it's the fault of the entire team, including managers, for not having safeguards in place. So instead of saying it's everyone's fault, it's nobody's fault in particular, but when we have responsibility to make it better for the next time. So, what do you think?
I'm a little bit on the fence on this one. I already was when 10 years ago this blameless postmortem thing raced through the industry. In general, I would totally agree. Doing postmortems, doing stuff. There is this book. Too many books in the background, but there is this book which is called The Field Guide to Understanding Human Error, which is incidentally not about human error. Because it says a pilot going down, crashing a plane, the pilot didn't want to crash the plane. So it's not saying, oh, the pilot made a mistake and let's blame the pilot. It doesn't give you any understanding because the pilot didn't want to crash the plane, but nevertheless he did or she did. Was it a bad UI? Was it a bad, I don't know, misreading of the instruments? Was it unclear instruments? Was it whatever the reason was? And I think I'm totally with there on blameless postmortems and also blameless cultures. Nevertheless, for me, it ends for me kind of around accountability and learning. Around accountability, if you're accountable to make this happen, you're accountable to make this happen. So if it's an individual or a team and you said we're going to do this and you're not going to do this, and I can't see, as a manager, I can't see the reason. Like I listen to you, I try to understand what's the reason, but I can't find the reason, and I find it's unreasonable that you fail your commitments. Like there might be something like, okay, server was down, or the office was flooded, or we misjudged the complexity of the architecture. We looked into it, Stefan, and that's all fine, But sometimes people do some things like, okay, we worked on something else instead because we thought this was, we committed to this, but we worked on something else. In this kind of accountability, I'm not blaming people, but I'm holding people accountable to their commitments. It's not like, so that's one part. And the other thing where I would disagree, in general, I would disagree with what about the comment, but accountability and learning. And if someone is not able to learn and adapt, then I also blame someone. I never blame like to my boss or say, okay, this is because this developer screwed up. I'm not naming names. Everything that happens in my department, I'm responsible for. I take the blame. I take the hit on my head. Everything is fine. But when someone is unwilling or unable to learn and makes the same thing again and again and again, then we need to fix this in a way. Preferably the person changes, but if he can't or if she can't, I will lay off the person if everything else didn't work or something. So these two things I might disagree about the blame thing.
Actually, I think that is what Maria said in the end, is like, but we all have the responsibility to make it better for next time. So actually, it is then, so it is not only the responsibility, because the responsibility is what we intrinsically do in order to get something done, but the accountability is what we are measured by, and is probably what the contract actually is. Some form of liability as well. And we need to understand that on some point in time, reality kicks in, and we need to do that. So I personally say it is important to not have a blameful environment, because in a blameful environment, suddenly, because it sucks out the energy of the team. That's one of the problem of the blame things. People, instead of focusing on the problems, they focusing on not being the person who basically the finger points on, right? So, and that is a bad thing, and it should become a mature environment. And I'm always saying, hey, there are actually 3 pillars, which is basically the responsibility, ownership, and the maturity. And the maturity is like, I need to understand, when I'm a mature person, I need to understand that I need to make sure that my doing is improving things. And if I can't be that person, I need to be responsible enough to take the consequence, to accept the consequence. That's actually it. So when I fail long term and I don't make it better, I lose my job, or worse. Depends on in the role you are. And because as engineers, and that is one of the original engineer thing, because software engineers some kind of specific wording, but engineering means to not harm others and to not harm anything. So which means that you simply cannot harm the current business by not performing very well. So you always should, when you understand, hey, I've done something wrong, or we as a team have done something wrong, we need to become better. And that is what I think Maria means with responsibility, and that is extremely important. So it is not this pink unicorn world here. It is actually something really real out there. Many people right now simply don't find jobs in this industry, and those who have the jobs should push forward to keep them, to support the business. This is in general the best advice in that moment you can give, and to keep it blameless, but without or phrase it differently, relentlessly try to become better in what you do, right? Do everything to become better. It must not be great in every iteration, but it must be a little bit better every time. Otherwise, you won't get out of that. Okay, but that was actually interesting one. Okay, I wanted to ask you something. So we have 20 minutes left. So 10 minutes before wrap up. You said tooling. I just want to ask you the question because I think it's very relevant these days. What role will play AI in terms of developer motivation? Because right now it's a polarizing topic out there. Some people say it's great, it's motivating, it helped me a lot, and others are basically fighting against it like a foe. So what do you think about that?
Oh, I thought I have an opinion. I had some comments and discussions on LinkedIn today. I'm not sure I have an opinion anymore. The point is, we're currently moving so fast that with big changes every 6 months. So I don't know where this is going. Currently it more feels like a hurricane, and I can't see which direction, what's going on. I feel like AI is very, very important, and is today someone who I appreciate a lot said AI is overhyped. I think AI is underhyped. The impact will be much, much, much bigger on software development than people currently see. So it's way underhyped. People are not acting. Managers are not acting accordingly. They currently it's just okay. Let's do a little bit cursor. Let's do a bit ChatGPT. So there will be big changes. I don't know what they are. My personal frustration, a little bit with motivation. My joy is when I talk to ChatGPT or Claude or some other AI, and I get working code back for code I didn't want to write. which is usually if the problem is clearly specified. This is a JSON structure, change some value there and do this and this and this, and then I get a function which does some counting and some updating, and it usually works. I'm happy with that. But I'm very unhappy when I write tell ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, or IntelliJ, do this, and it doesn't work. The result clearly is not working. And I try to rephrase it, not working. Rephrase it, not working. Adding requirements, not working. And then I get once a week, sometimes once a day, I get into this loop where the AI is just not doing what I think it's very, very easy to understand what I'm saying. Perhaps this is how a product manager feels talking to a developer. I don't know.
I wanted to say that. It is like humans
very
work as
simple,
well, right?
and the AI is not doing what I want. So there is motivation and demotivation currently with AI very, very close together.
Exactly. You have this, some days you feel like, oh, now it became deterministic. Now it understands me. And in fact, especially when you use a specific LLM for quite a long time, for example, you use Copilot for a while now, and it learns together with you. You use ChatGPT in the professional version, and it basically have this memory stuff. And then you will see it becomes better and better and better. But when you start with a new one or something like that, and then you really feel like, hey, that's logical. Why can't you do that? You just provided something great, and now you provide me that crap. So that's but that is a snapshot of, what is it now, 2 years that we have LLMs
it's amazingly short.
It is let's fast forward 10 years. No one is thinking about those problems anymore, and then we need to think what actually happened to us.
And it's much faster than the introduction of the internet. Like my first homepage was in 1993, I think. That when I created my first HTML homepage. Stefan at the university. No, it was HTML, and I did HTML. It was a great background because CSS was not yet invented, and so it was. And I think that had radical changes. I founded a startup in 1999, an internet startup. So there were some changes, but it's still were much slower, I feel, than the changes we have seen with AI, and I feel the changes will go on with this speed for the next years. And then I haven't believed in the singularity. Like, I don't know if you know the concept of singularity, where there are so grave technical changes that you can't extrapolate the future from now beyond the singularity. Haven't believed in that, but I'm on the edge now because the AI changes are so fast.
I think that even the people who work on building those things don't really know what happens. And it is a little bit like every day you hear like which AI will support developers more, and so many people say it's so great to work with that. Other people say it is awful and it will never be, and some people are afraid. I know a lot of LinkedIn people who don't find jobs right now, and they see, or when you hear like tomorrow I release a video about that actually, and the AWS boss in the cloud was actually saying that they definitely want to replace people. That's their goal, right? So it's not like
there was an interview. I think it was Christian von Hardenberg. I'm not sure, but one of these. No, it was Christian, another CTO. He said in an interview, he asked about the layoffs, and it was not Christian von Hardenberg. It was another Christian CTO. But in an interview, I think that the CTO of Superlist or CEO, CTO of Superlist, and he said that in an interview with Golem, that the layoffs are just an anticipation of the AI wave. So it's not anything economical. Why 250,000 developers have been laid off? It's the coming AI wave, or the perceived. I'm not sure it's coming in that way. I don't know. I had to lay off people in the past and then just hire them again. I was forced to lay off some people, and then didn't work. Not my idea. And then I had to hire them again. So I'm not sure this is at play here too. But I think the perception of a lot of companies is we have too many developers. Which I don't know if it's true, but it's a perception, I think.
developers will become more effective, of course,
Yes.
when they use these extremely well-made tools, let's say, tools which actually learn the ways how you would like it. So developer motivation again, and that actually delivers on that. So it basically they read your intention and they basically write it down for you, and that will become so effective in the next years that you will do less hands-on stuff, so
Yes.
less the tedious stuff. So for when I do coding, I don't like to write algorithms. I hate algorithms. It's like that's a little bit like this. You have a something very, let's say this is a roadblock in doing things. So instead of you actually making progress in your software, you're stuck in this little thing. Oftentimes you're debugging that, those kind of things. And when AI is actually taking that away from you, that will motivate you because you can start to
Yes.
focus on the actual development of the software,
Yes.
right? You don't lose the bigger picture because we human beings, we are not able to do multitasking. We can only focus on one thing. And when we focus on the nitty gritty things, we cannot focus on the things outside of it. That's
Yeah.
actually quite interesting.
I found mine a point which is a positive one for developers. I wondered, as a CTO and before, I wondered what's the right amount of developers you should have. I also wrote a blog post a long time ago about this, because I look at the companies and I see companies doing great things with 10 people. I see companies doing good things with 100. I see companies doing bad things with 10,000. I never understood how the amount of developers is related in any way to the problem to solve. And I think the amount of developers is just a percentage of revenue, or from investment, whatever you have, either revenue or you have investment. And then people spend 20% on developers or 25% on developers. And that's the amount of developers you have. And then, so, you have revenue, margin, costs, and then some percentage of the developers. So with this model, if this model is true, and the companies have the money, they would keep the same amount of developers than just doing more. Like if this is the reason, if they adjust and say, okay, we now only need to spend 5% on development in the future instead of 20%, that because of AI. But I also have the hunch that the amount of developers is still determined by revenue. 20% of revenue, that's the amount we want to spend on development.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's not, AI is not in that equation.
There is enough demand on the market. So software development, I did a little bit of research yesterday, 2 days ago. It's one of the sectors which constantly grows. So which means that sometimes we have layoffs, but take the car industry, there were actually jobs disappearing. Demand got higher, but jobs were disappearing because of automation. But we have, especially the IT sector, software development in IT, is basically part of the so-called digitization. The digitization is not IT specific. It's actually vice versa. It is basically everything outside of the IT needs to be digitized. And so the IT is basically part of every sector out there. So there is not infinite, but it is definitely a lot of unused demand so far. And if we can use and leverage AI correctly, then the current developers will be more effective. And that's the actual goal of the AWS Cloud Boss. He said, and it was actually a leak, but he said that AWS want, and this is many CTOs want to have that CEOs, that software developers focus more on the clients and the business outcome than actually on doing coding, because coding is actually quite worthless. It is the same with infrastructure.
But it makes sure. I
that's a
enjoy
hobby.
it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm enjoying that as well, right? But it is not what makes the money. It is that.
Yes.
It is not what makes the money.
Yeah.
And that is why we will see more low-code solutions in the future. And somewhere in the future, we see no-code solutions. And no matter who software developers say today, no, that's nonsense, that will not happen, look at the output. Yeah, look today at the output, look in 10 years at the output, look in 20 years at the output. If you look at the output in 10 years.
Great background. You know, that's not...
I'm not even sure that we in 10 years, in a decade from now, we even look at output anymore. So it is a little bit like it is going too fast. It must be something revolutionary in the future. And the best thing we software developers can do is to focus less on the operational and focus more on the high level view of what we are. So the software development, not the coding, not the programming. This is the part which actually gets replaced, not the people. It is the hands-on part which is replaced.
Does this increase motivation or decrease motivation?
For many people, it will increase the motivation because many, especially newer generations, are not that geeky anymore. So the geeky, nerdy thing isn't that strong anymore, like it was in our generations. So most developers, when I started, were simply geeks, nerds. They don't even need to have an education for that. Was just a
yes.
They were just
I started coding at 10.
So. Me at 8, something like that, on Amiga and Commodore back then. And that was so fun, right? But
there was no computer when I was 8, sadly. Not GPU computer.
You have whiter hair than me, so probably.
Yes, I'm 50+.
Yeah, but that's the reality. So in terms of motivation for the people who are very into still programming and coding, I would recommend to enjoy the next 10 years. Because on some point in time it becomes, hey, it's your side project. Hey, I'm still able to do craft because the idea of engineering will become stronger and the idea of actual craft will become less. And that is, I think, what actually happens, because the demand and the business won't go away. Vice versa, it will become stronger. So we need more people who can translate business into technology, but not in form with a keyboard anymore. It will have different ways to actually do that. Not in the next 3 to 5 years. I don't think so, because especially in smaller companies, you have so many problems there still, so many very complexities intertwined with all those kind of things. That will take a while until this transformation will happen. But in large companies, we will see that way earlier than in small companies. But in a decade from now, the world looks different. I'm 100% sure.
I think so too.
Okay, so let's go through some comments. Maria said, internal team politics are also destroys developers' motivation. Think of some senior team members as a threat of feeling good to see them failing. Okay, that sounds sad, to be honest, but I know that happens from time to time. I know many conflicts out there. Those are the typical stories when humans are actually not really taking responsibility to be a good person in a culture, and that those things happen, I would say. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. Minor point of politics. There's also a book. Do I have a book? Yeah, there's also a book on politics somewhere. If you need to live with politics, but one reason I only have clients up to 100 engineers is, first, that's where I'm most qualified. But second, above some level, the manager's life is mostly driven by politics, and I'm not interested in that. So if you have 500 engineers, you probably only deal with a lot of politics, and I'm not interested in that. I don't like it. I think it's a great big demotivator. So yeah, but on whatever level, this level, on this level, or can draw it sideways if we don't like a hierarchy. Whatever politics, I think is a great demotivator. Get rid of it.
I agree totally. Alina said, I am an AI adept in my company. There are many pros and cons in this area, but I can definitely tell that it can boost productivity if you know how to use it and where to avoid using it. That's very true. Simply said, that's very true. That is very good wrap up. I would put into addition the timely aspect of it, the factor. It's like it will change in 1 year, and the where to not use it will become less, and where to use it become more. That's what I say will happen. Yeah, agree? Not agree?
Yep.
Maybe.
No, I agree. I mean, ChatGPT 01 preview different than the last version. So I think ChatGPT or Llama or Claude, every version is quite different from the last one in its capability. So
I'm riding bike to office. It takes 1.5 hours a day to do that. It's just a fitness program of me. Um, and I have my earbuds on, and I'm lately talking when I have no one to phone. I actually talk to ChatGPT,
yeah,
the advanced voice mode,
yeah,
the
yeah,
new one. It is so great. Really, I'm really doing strategic topics or doing research for topics together with that voice. I've got so used to that voice, which is you even hear the breath of that voice, so it feels so natural. And
yeah,
it is so interesting to speak with an AI, and you come up with a topic, and once you are in office, you see the entire thing. You ask the AI to wrap this up, and you get a wrap up of you used your time so efficiently on a bike.
yeah,
So I used to listen to podcasts on a bike because you can't do anything there. But now you actually can do things. So you're riding bike and you're talking to an AI, and you come up with a result half an hour later. That is
yeah,
great. That is efficient. That is motivating,
yeah,
by the way.
yeah. And it will go beyond that. The final thing about AI that too many things. But the one thing, the second Blade Runner movie was, I think, generally a bad one. But the relationship and the caring about an AI, I think, is foreshadowing. So people will build relations. We're just like humans are just like that, and you will build a relation, not a professional relation or a friendship relation, I think, to AIs in the future. So what you've
I
experienced will
the
go
the
far beyond that.
With a new update, you can basically interrupt with voice. And I felt resistance and hesitancy to
Yes,
actually interrupt the AI because it felt wrong to interrupt a person while
yes,
speaking.
that's how we tick.
And that's like I was it my brain was like, oh, what I'm doing, this is just an AI. And then I think to myself, it's learning, it's remembering what you've said. And then, and it is just I just said 1 decade
Yes,
from now, things will
yes,
definitely be different, right?
yes.
Okay, so that was actually cool. Do you have any other thing you wanted to mention today?
No, I think I mentioned my newsletter, free CTO manager, engineering manager newsletter, amazing CTO newsletter. I think that's.
I would recommend to go on his profile on LinkedIn right now and sign up for his newsletter. I'm actually
Yes.
I was signed up, I think 1 year before we spoke first time, because someone mentioned you on a podcast in a German podcast on Programmierbar.
Programmierbar. Yeah, that was kind of a breakthrough podcast for me.
Ah, you were there on
Podcast
a
wise.
podcast. Yeah, I was listening to you. And then I was thinking, oh, this guy and this cool guy and something like that. And today we're just having regular things. That's the nice thing of social media, actually, that you
That's another
can
thing I
get.
needed. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. I was remembering that one. So from that day on, I was basically reading your newsletter.
Excellent.
Okay, everyone.
Really.
Thank you very much for being our audience today. Stefan, thank you for being my guest today. That was a great topic. We'll post it so in full length on the blog and probably on YouTube as well. And Maria's asking if you could share the book names in the chat, maybe in the comment section
Yeah.
after the show. Okay, great. Everyone else, thank you very much. And a little bit of music, and then I would say, there is the music. And then I would say have a nice weekend, because it's a long weekend here, mostly in Europe. And wish you a great time then, and see you next week then. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.